So in this part, we're continuing from the previous part where we had the card view, and in this part we're going to display a list of scrums. We can populate a list with static or dynamic views. So we're going to use for each structure to dynamically generate the rows and from the scrum objects. So let's see. In this part, we're going to take the card view and we're going to display it in the list. So let's take the SwiftUI file, which we have to create, called scrums view. So let's create scrums view here. It's going to be a SwiftUI view, and we're calling it scrums view. And in scrums view, we're going to add a constant property called scrums of type array of daily scrum. So let's do that. So the property is called scrums and it's an array of daily scrum. Now let's see what we have here. It's saying adding the scrums property causes a compiler error because we need to initialize scrums view with an array of scrums. So we can fix this by passing an array of scrums to the scrums view initializer. So let's do that. So the daily scrums is actually sample data that we have in our daily scrum class or struct. So let's take a look at that. We have daily scrum.sample data, and that should be fine. So let's see if this updates. Yeah, so it's compiling right now. Let's go on. Replace the default text view with a list view. So let's remove the default text view and add a list with a closure. The list initializer in this step accepts a view builder as its only parameter. So you can add rows with the same syntax you've been using with other container views such as hstack and vstack. So it says that the list initializer accepts a view builder as its only parameter. We can add rows with the same syntax we've been using with the other container views such as hstack and vstack. We can also initialize lists from collections of data and specify a different selection type and read more about it. So let's keep going. We'll populate the list using a for each view. To create views using for each, we pass its initializer collection of items along with a closure that creates a view for each item. So let's add the for each. So it says for each, and we have the parameter scrums and an ID field and a closure with the scrum inside the closure. So that's pretty much what they're saying here, that we have a closure that creates a view for each item. So let's do that. For each, and here we have the scrums and an ID field which takes in title, and that's the closure. So the key path is the value here, and we pass title to the key path or to the ID property in the initializer. So for each needs a way to identify individual items in the collection because all the scrums in the test data have different names, we can use the title property. And later we'll have to provide a more stable way of identifying the ID property because it needs to be unique. So let's keep going. Initialize a card view in the for each closure. So let's do that. This closure returns a card view for each element in the scrums array. Set the background color of the row to scrum.theme.main color. So let's set the background to scrum.theme.main color. And just to refresh, we have the theme here and the main color is here, and the sample data has the theme set inside the sample data. So that's how we're getting a color in there. So if we go back to Scrum view, we should see colored values in there. Make scrums identifiable. For each structures, generate dynamic views by iterating over identifiable data. We used a key path to identify scrums by their titles. This approach works for prototyping because each scrum has a unique title, but users would experience issues if they tried to create a new scrum with the same title as the existing one. To work with user-generated content, we need to make daily scrum conform to the identifiable protocol for a more robust way to communicate identity. And the protocol has one requirement, an ID property that provides a stable identifier for the entity. So let's do that. Open daily scrum.swift and declare a conformance to the identifiable protocol. So daily scrum has to conform to identifiable, and to conform to identifiable, a model must have a property named ID, and let's add a constant ID of type UUID. And our code won't compile because the daily scrum initializers in the data array don't include an ID. So let's add an initializer that does that. Now this initializer is pretty straightforward. We can copy and paste this into daily scrum. When you define a default value for a parameter, we can omit the parameter when you call an initializer. So here we are setting a default value, so we can omit it when we call daily scrum init. So let's see if it compiles. So it's still complaining about something in here. I guess we added it in the wrong place. It should be inside the strict. And hit build. Okay, so now it should compile. In Scrum's view.swift, remove the ID parameter from the for each initializer. So now we can remove the ID param from the for each initializer. Now we'll make the Scrum's view the app's root view. We can create a SwiftUI app by declaring a structure that conforms to the app protocol. The app's body property returns a scene that contains a view hierarchy representing the primary user interface for the app. So in Scrum app, in the base app, we can add the Scrum view and pass the sample data. So that's going to be our Scrum's view, our CodeLab's Pro app. And we can change this to read scrums view, and here we are passing scrums as the value, and we are passing the array, which is daily scrum.sample data. Let's see it build. Now we can run the app in the simulator. So now we have the 3 Scrum views appearing, and let's see what we can do next. So in the next one, we'll make the view interactive. So let's do the quiz. How should you use for each to display the title of each training session in a text view? So we have a struct which is called training session. There are sessions here, which is an array of training session, and we need for each to show the sessions. So this looks right, except this doesn't have the ID as a unique property, and this one has ID as session number, which could be unique, and this one doesn't have a unique session. So it looks like this should be the correct one. Yeah, that looks right. Why does for each and content view fail to compile? So for each here has items. ID in item is not unique because it's an int here, and here we're not passing ID. So it looks like it's the second one. Or it could be this one. Yeah, that looks right. Which code snippet specifies a text view as the main screen of the app? So it seems like this is the correct one, because it should be in a window group, just like in here we have a window group. So it should be this one. Okay, so we're done with this part. In the next part, we're going to create the navigation hierarchy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.